Captain Jake Martinez pressed his face against the cold window of the Earth defense ship Horizon. The massive space station ahead looked like a giant metal city floating in the darkness. Its lights blinked in patterns he had never seen before. This was the Galactic Council's main station, and Earth was about to join them. "Sir, we will dock in 30 minutes, said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her seat at the communications panel. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and worry that Jake could hear clearly. Jake turned back to look at his crew. They all seemed nervous but excited too. This was the biggest day in human history. After years of sending messages into space and finally getting answers, Earth was joining the galaxy's most important group. Admiral Susan Blake walked onto the bridge wearing her best dress uniform. She had been chosen to speak for all of Earth during these talks. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her blue eyes looked determined, but tired. She had been working for months to make this day happen. "Captain Martinez, are you ready for this?" she asked. "As ready as anyone can be for meeting aliens, I guess," Jake replied with a small smile. The talks had started 2 years ago when the Galactic Council first contacted Earth. Their ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, one day, scaring everyone until they sent a peaceful message. They said they had been watching Earth for a long time and were impressed with how fast humans had learned to travel in space. The council representatives had been friendly from the beginning. They spoke perfect English, which surprised everyone. They explained that they had been studying Earth's radio and television signals for decades. They knew about human culture, human history, and human technology. Dr. Richard Cole joined them on the bridge. He was Earth's smartest scientist and had been working with the aliens to share knowledge. His excitement was clear on his face as he looked out at the station. "Jake, this is amazing. Do you know what we're going to learn from them? Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. They've promised to share it all with us once we join the council." The alien representatives had asked many questions about Earth during the early talks. They wanted to know about human cities, human armies, and human weapons. They said this was normal for new members. Every species had to prove they could defend themselves and their allies. Earth's leaders had been happy to answer these questions. They sent detailed information about military bases, weapon systems, and defense plans. The aliens seemed very interested in how humans fought wars and protected their planets. "The docking is complete, sir," Amy reported. Jake felt the ship shake slightly as the docking clamps locked into place. Through the window, he could see alien workers moving around the docking bay. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, but others had 4 arms or strange blue skin. One group seemed to be floating instead of walking. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 aliens stepped through onto the horizon. The leader was tall and thin with green skin and large black eyes. Jake recognized him from the video calls as Counselor Zethkar. "Welcome humans to Council Station 1, Zethkar said in his smooth voice. "We are very pleased that Earth has decided to join our great alliance." Behind him stood 2 other aliens. One looked like a giant insect with 4 arms and shiny black skin. The other was short and round with thick fur covering his entire body. All 3 wore long robes with the council symbol on the chest. Admiral Blake stepped forward and shook hands with each alien. The formal greeting had been practiced many times, but it still felt strange to Jake to see humans touching alien skin for the first time. "Thank you for welcoming Earth into the council," Blake said. "We look forward to learning from your wisdom and sharing our own knowledge with the galaxy." Dr. Cole could barely contain his excitement as he shook hands with the aliens. He had been waiting months to see their technology up close. The aliens had already shared some basic information, but they promised much more once Earth became an official member. The group walked through the station's corridors toward the main council chamber. Jake was amazed by what he saw. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that changed colors as they walked past. Aliens of dozens of different species moved through the hallways, all wearing the same council robes. "How many species belong to the council?" Jake asked Zethkar. 47 intelligent species are currently members," the alien replied. "Each one was carefully chosen for their contribution to galactic peace and prosperity. Earth will be number 48. The main chamber was enormous. Jake estimated it could hold thousands of beings. The walls curved up into a dome overhead, and the whole room seemed to glow with soft light that came from everywhere and nowhere. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the chamber. Some sat in chairs like humans, while others hung from the ceiling or floated in tanks of water. Jake had never imagined such diversity was possible. The signing ceremony took 3 hours. Admiral Blake read the treaty carefully before signing Earth's name to the document. The treaty promised peace, trade, and mutual defense between Earth and all Council members. In return, Earth would share its technology and follow Council laws. When Blake finished signing, the entire chamber erupted in sounds that Jake assumed were cheering. Some aliens made musical tones, others clicked or buzzed, and a few roared like wild animals, but it all seemed friendly and welcoming. Earth is now officially a member of the Galactic Council, Zethkar announced. Let the celebration begin. The party lasted for 3 days. Aliens showed humans their art, their music, and their food. Some of it was strange, but most was interesting. Jake found himself enjoying conversations with beings he never could have imagined meeting. But on the second day, Amy Foster approached him with a worried look on her face. "Captain, I need to show you something," she said quietly. She led him to a private corner of the communications room and pulled out her datapad. On the screen were recordings of alien communications she had been monitoring. "Sir, I've been listening to their radio signals and something doesn't feel right. They're using codes I can't break, but the patterns are all wrong for peaceful communications. This looks more like military planning." Jake studied the data, but couldn't make sense of the alien symbols and sounds. "Are you sure about this, Amy?" "I'm not certain, but my instincts are telling me something is wrong. These signals started right after we signed the treaty yesterday." Jake looked around the room at the celebrating aliens and humans. Everyone seemed happy and peaceful, but Amy had good instincts about communications, and he had learned to trust her judgment. "Keep monitoring their signals," he told her quietly. "But don't tell anyone else about this yet. Let's see what develops." On the final day of celebration, a message arrived from Earth that changed everything. Admiral Blake received the coded transmission in her private quarters and immediately called an emergency meeting with the Earth delegation. "I just received word from Earth Defense Command," she announced to the small group. "Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of ships approaching our solar system. The ships are using Council identification codes, but their formation and heading suggest hostile intent." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Cole was the first to speak. "But that's impossible. We just signed a peace treaty. Why would Council ships approach Earth in battle formation?" Blake's face was grim as she replied, "I don't know, but we need to assume the worst. It appears we may have been betrayed." Jake felt his stomach drop. Amy's suspicions had been correct. The friendly aliens who had welcomed Earth into their alliance were not what they seemed to be. Outside their meeting room, the celebration continued. Alien and human voices mixed in what sounded like joy and friendship. But Jake now wondered if the aliens were celebrating something very different from what the humans thought. The betrayal was about to begin, and Earth was far from home with only one ship to protect its delegation. Jake realized they might be walking into the biggest trap in human history. As he looked out at the alien celebration, Jake made a silent promise. If the Council had betrayed Earth, they would learn that humans were not as helpless as they appeared. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you made enemies of the human race. General Paul Harris stood in the deep underground command center beneath the Pentagon. The room was filled with glowing screens and busy officers watching data from across the solar system. Red warning lights flashed on every monitor as the alien fleet grew closer to Earth. "Sir, the enemy fleet is 3 times larger than anything the Council told us they had," reported Colonel Nancy Price from her station. "Our long-range sensors count over 2,000 ships approaching Earth." Paul's jaw tightened as he studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was massive, organized, and moving with the precision of a military force that had done this many times before. This was not a patrol or a friendly visit. This was an invasion force. "How long until they reach Earth?" Paul asked. 18 hours at their current speed, sir." Across the room, Dr. Lisa Thompson was working frantically at her computer station. She had been Earth's lead scientist in the cultural exchange program with the Council. For months, she had been sharing human biological data with alien researchers who claimed they wanted to understand human health and medicine. "General Harris, you need to see this," Lisa called out with panic in her voice. Paul walked over to her station where she had alien data files displayed on her screen. The symbols and charts meant nothing to him, but Lisa's face was white with fear. "Sir, I've been analyzing the biological data the aliens requested from us. They weren't interested in helping humans with medicine. They were mapping our weaknesses. These files show research into biological weapons designed specifically to kill humans." Paul felt cold anger building in his chest. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. They have detailed studies of human blood, human organs, and human immune systems. They've been developing viruses and toxins that would only affect humans. The medical examinations they gave our delegation weren't for health checks. They were gathering intelligence for genocide." The betrayal was worse than anyone had imagined. The friendly aliens who had welcomed Earth into their alliance had been planning to wipe out the human race from the beginning. Every handshake, every shared meal, every cultural exchange had been preparation for murder. Meanwhile, on the Council station, Captain Jake Martinez was beginning to understand the true situation. The celebration had ended abruptly when Admiral Blake received the message from Earth. Now the human delegation found themselves confined to their quarters under what the aliens called protective custody. Jake paced in his small room, listening to the sounds of alien activity in the corridors outside. Through his door's small window, he could see Council security forces moving with military precision. Their friendly masks had been dropped, and now they looked like what they really were: soldiers preparing for war. Admiral Blake was taken for questioning by Counselor Zethkar and 2 other senior council members. They brought her to a room deep inside the station where the walls were covered with screens showing images from across the galaxy. "Admiral Blake," Zethkar said as she was forced into a chair, "we regret that circumstances have changed. Earth's membership in the Council has been terminated due to violations of galactic law." "What violations?" Blake demanded. "We've done everything you asked." Zethkar's large black eyes showed something that might have been amusement. "The violation is your species' existence, Admiral. You see, the Galactic Council maintains peace by ensuring that no species becomes powerful enough to challenge our authority." The alien pressed a button, and the screens around the room lit up with images of destroyed planets, burning cities, and empty space where star systems used to exist. For 3,000 years, the Council has identified promising species and invited them to join us. We study their capabilities, map their defenses, and learn their weaknesses. Then we eliminate them before they can become a threat. Blake felt sick as she looked at the images of genocide displayed around her. Dozens of civilizations had been destroyed by the Council. Entire species had been wiped out for the crime of showing potential. "Humans are particularly dangerous," Zethkar continued. "You went from primitive cave dwellers to interstellar travelers in just a few thousand years. That kind of rapid advancement has only been seen in 3 other species. We destroyed all of them." Back on Earth, President Karen Murphy was addressing the nation from the White House Situation Room. Behind her, military advisors worked at computer stations coordinating Earth's defense. The president's face was calm, but her eyes showed the determination of someone ready to fight for her species' survival. "My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth," she began, "I must inform you that humanity faces its greatest challenge. The Galactic Council has betrayed our trust and is sending a massive fleet to attack our world." She paused as the weight of her words sank in across the planet. Billions of people were learning that their first contact with aliens had been a trap designed to destroy them. "However, I want you to know that Earth is not defenseless. For the past 15 years, our military has been preparing for exactly this situation. While our diplomats worked for peace, our generals planned for war. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, blast doors were opening and ships were emerging from concealment. The fleet that appeared was nothing like the exploration vessels the Council had been shown. These were warships built in secret and designed for one purpose: defending Earth against alien attack. Admiral Tony Rodriguez commanded the hidden fleet from his flagship, the USS Defiance. The massive battleship had been constructed inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. For 10 years, miners and engineers had worked in absolute secrecy to build Earth's true military force. "All ships report ready for combat," his communications officer announced. Tony looked out at the fleet assembling around his ship. 50 heavy battleships, 200 destroyers, and hundreds of smaller attack craft emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. The Council had expected to find a primitive world with basic defenses. Instead, they would face a military force that had been preparing for their arrival. Dr. Emma Clark was aboard the USS Defiance as the fleet's chief weapons designer. For years, she had studied every piece of alien technology Earth had encountered. She had reverse-engineered their shields, analyzed their hull materials, and developed weapons specifically designed to destroy Council ships. "Admiral Rodriguez, our weapons are ready," she reported. "Every ship in the fleet is equipped with plasma cannons designed to penetrate Council armor. We also have electromagnetic pulse weapons that should disable their electronics." The first test of Earth's preparations came when the Council's advanced scouts entered the outer solar system. 3 alien ships approached what they thought was empty space near Neptune. Instead, they found a network of automated defense platforms disguised as asteroids. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. The Council scouts were completely destroyed by concentrated fire from weapons they never saw coming. Not one alien ship escaped to report what they had found. On the Council station, Jake Martinez and his team used the confusion to begin planning their escape. Lieutenant Amy Foster had continued monitoring alien communications and had discovered the security codes for the station's transportation systems. "Captain, I think I can get us to the docking bay," she whispered during their evening meal. "The aliens are focused on the fleet attack. Their security is lighter than usual." Dr. Richard Cole had spent his time in captivity studying the alien technology around them. His scientific knowledge, combined with what he had learned during the cultural exchange, gave him insights into how Council systems worked. "I can disable their tracking systems," he offered. "If we can reach a Council transport ship, I think I can fly it." Jake looked around at his small team. They were diplomats and scientists, not soldiers, but they were also humans, and humans had a reputation for surviving against impossible odds. "We'll make our move tonight," he decided. "If Earth is fighting for its life, then we need to do our part." Back on Earth, the main Council fleet was finally detected by ground-based telescopes. Citizens around the world looked up at the night sky, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, thousands of alien ships were approaching with the intention of destroying their planet. But Earth was ready. The trap the Council had set was about to become a trap of their own. Humanity had learned the hard way that the galaxy was not a safe place. Now the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not an easy target. The war for Earth's survival was about to begin, and the Council was going to discover that they had made a terrible mistake. Humans did not go quietly into extinction. When threatened, they fought back with everything they had, and humanity had been preparing for this fight longer than the Council knew. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance as his hidden fleet moved into attack position. The massive battleship had been built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, and now it emerged like a sleeping giant awakening to defend its home. Around him, officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency, their training finally being put to the ultimate test. "Sir, the Council fleet has entered the outer solar system," reported Commander Helen Brooks from the tactical station. "They're moving in standard formation, expecting minimal resistance." Tony smiled grimly as he watched the enemy ships on his display screen. The Council fleet was impressive, with over 2,000 vessels of various sizes. But they were flying, in parade formation, confident that they faced a primitive world with basic defenses. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez," he announced over the fleet communications. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. Weapons free, engage the enemy." The first surprise came when the Council fleet reached the asteroid, belt between Mars and Jupiter. What they thought was empty space suddenly filled with weapons fire as hundreds of hidden gun platforms opened up on them. The asteroids themselves were fake, concealing massive plasma cannons and missile launchers. Council Admiral Vex Thor watched in shock from his flagship as the first wave of his fleet was torn apart by weapons that appeared from nowhere. Ships that had dominated dozens of star systems were being destroyed by humans who were supposed to be helpless primitives. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officer. Our intelligence report said humans had only basic space technology. Sir, it appears our intelligence was wrong, the officer replied nervously. These weapon platforms are using advanced plasma technology. Their power levels are off our charts. The Council fleet tried to regroup, but more surprises awaited them. Captain Danny Walsh led a squadron of human destroyers in a lightning attack on the Council's support ships. His vessels emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach. Target their supply vessels first, Danny ordered his squadron. Cut off their fuel and ammunition, and their big ships become floating targets. The human destroyers moved with speed and precision that caught the Council forces off guard. Their ships were smaller than the Council battleships, but they were faster and more maneuverable. Within an hour, Danny's squadron had destroyed half of the Council's logistics fleet. Back on the Council station, Captain Jake Martinez and his team made their escape attempt during the confusion of the battle reports. Lieutenant Amy Foster had memorized the security codes she had intercepted, and she led the group through the station's corridors toward the docking bay. The transport ship is in Bay 7, she whispered as they moved through the dimly lit passages. According to the schedules I saw, it should be empty right now. Dr. Richard Cole carried a small device he had built from spare parts in his quarters. The device could interfere with the station's security sensors, giving them a few minutes of invisibility as they moved through the corridors. They reached the transport ship without being detected. The alien vessel was smaller than human ships, but clearly built for long-distance travel. Richard studied the control systems for a moment before his face lit up with understanding. I can fly this, he said confidently. The basic principles are the same as human ships, just with different interfaces. As their stolen ship left the Council station, Jake activated the communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies. What he had to say would change the course of the war. This is Captain Jake Martinez of Earth calling all ships, he announced. I have information about Council war crimes that every species in the galaxy needs to hear. He began transmitting the data they had gathered during their imprisonment. The files showed the Council's history of genocide, their systematic destruction of promising civilizations, and their plans for biological warfare against humans. Meanwhile, the battle in Earth's solar system was intensifying. The Council fleet had recovered from their initial shock and was pressing forward with their superior numbers. But Earth's defenders had more surprises waiting. Colonel Nancy Price commanded the defense platforms hidden throughout the inner solar system. Her weapons were built into fake space stations and mining facilities that the Council had been told were civilian installations. All platforms, begin Phase 2, she ordered as the Council fleet approached Mars. Suddenly, mining ships revealed themselves to be heavily armed gunships. Space stations opened hidden weapon ports and began firing on the advancing alien fleet. Even some of the larger asteroids turned out to be disguised battleships. The Council forces found themselves in a carefully prepared killing field. Every piece of space junk, every civilian facility, every mining operation was actually part of Earth's defense network. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Dr. Emma Clark watched the battle from her position aboard the USS Defiance. Her weapons were performing exactly as designed, cutting through Council armor and shields like they were made of paper. Years of studying alien technology had paid off. Admiral, the electromagnetic pulse weapons are working perfectly, she reported to Tony Rodriguez. Council ships are losing power and drifting helpless after each hit. The tide of battle was turning, in humanity's favor. But the real shock came when more human ships arrived from outside the solar system. Captain Frank Miller led a fleet of Earth vessels that had been secretly stationed at nearby star systems for months. Admiral Rodriguez, this is Captain Miller, came the transmission from the approaching fleet. Earth's Second Fleet reporting, for duty. We have 50 ships ready to join the fight. Tony stared at the tactical display in amazement. Even he hadn't known about the Second Fleet. Earth's military planning had been more extensive than anyone had imagined. The Council forces were now outnumbered and outgunned. Their ships, designed to intimidate primitive species, proved vulnerable to weapons specifically built to destroy them. Human tactics based on flexibility and adaptation completely overwhelmed the rigid Council military doctrine. Admiral Vexthor realized his invasion was failing. The species he had come to exterminate was proving more dangerous than any the Council had faced before. He ordered a retreat, but even that proved impossible. Human ships had positioned themselves at every exit from the solar system. The Council fleet found itself trapped in a maze of hidden weapons platforms and mobile human warships. There was no escape from the trap they had flown into. On Earth, President Karen Murphy addressed the planet again as reports of victory began coming in. Behind her, the Situation Room buzzed with activity as military commanders coordinated the final phases of the battle. "Citizens of Earth," she announced, "our forces are winning the battle for our solar system. The Council fleet is being destroyed, and our people are safe." But the President's expression remained serious as she continued. "However, this is just the beginning. The Council has committed genocide against dozens of species over thousands of years. Earth will not allow these crimes to continue." She paused, letting her words sink in to the billions of people watching around the world. "Humanity is going to war," she declared. "Not just to defend ourselves, but to bring justice to the galaxy. The Council's reign of terror ends now." Back in space, the last Council ships in the solar system were surrendering or being destroyed. Admiral Tony Rodriguez looked out at the wreckage of what had once been a mighty invasion fleet and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The Council had underestimated humanity's ability to prepare for war. They had mistaken human diplomacy for weakness and human openness for vulnerability. Now they were paying the price for their arrogance. But Tony knew this was only the first battle in a much larger war. The Council controlled thousands of star systems and had been building their military for millennia. Earth had won the first round, but the real fight was just beginning. He activated the fleet communications one more time. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're taking this fight to the Council's home territory." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their refusal to give up, their determination to fight for what was right, and their willingness to stand up to bullies no matter how powerful they seemed. The Council had betrayed Earth, but Earth was about to show them what betrayal really cost. Admiral Tony Rodriguez gathered his fleet commanders in the briefing room of the USS Defiance. The holographic display showed star charts marking Council territory across dozens of systems. Red dots indicated major military bases, while yellow markers showed worlds where enslaved species lived under Council rule. "Gentlemen, ladies," Tony began, "our victory in the solar system was just the first step. Intelligence gathered from captured Council ships shows us the true scope of their empire. They control 47 star systems and have been oppressing civilizations for thousands of years." Captain Danny Walsh studied the star charts with interest. His destroyers had performed excellently in the solar system battle, and he was eager to take the fight to the enemy's home territory. "Admiral, what's our primary target?" Danny asked. "The Proxima system," Tony replied, highlighting a cluster of planets near Earth. "It's the Council's main military base in this region. If we can take it out, we'll cripple their ability to send reinforcements." Dr. Emma Clark had been working around the clock to analyze the technology from captured Council ships. Her team had made remarkable discoveries about their enemy's weaknesses. "Admiral, I have good news," Emma announced. "The Council's technology is actually less advanced than we thought. They've been using the same basic designs for centuries. They never needed to innovate because they always had overwhelming numbers." She pulled up technical diagrams on the display. "Their shields operate on a single frequency. Our plasma weapons can be adjusted to cut right through them. And their computer systems are surprisingly vulnerable to the virus programs Dr. Cole developed." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Martinez and his escape team had reached the liberated world of Kepler 442b in their stolen Council transport. The planet's inhabitants, a species called the Navari, had been enslaved by the Council for over 200 years. The Novari looked similar to humans, but with blue-tinted skin and larger eyes adapted for their dim star. Their leader, Elder Zara, met the human delegation with curiosity and hope. "You are the humans who defeated a council fleet?" Zara asked in broken English that she had learned from intercepted Earth broadcasts. "We are," Jake replied. "And we're here to offer you freedom. The council's power is ending, but we need allies to make sure they can never hurt anyone again." Elder Zara's eyes filled with tears of joy. For generations, her people had dreamed of freedom from council oppression. The arrival of humans offering liberation seemed too good to be true. "What do you need from us?" she asked. "Information about council operations in this sector," Admiral Blake explained. "And if you're willing, we could use pilots who know council ship designs." Within hours, Novari volunteers were joining the human fleet. Their knowledge of council tactics and technology proved invaluable. More importantly, word of the Alliance began spreading to other enslaved worlds. Back in Earth's solar system, President Karen Murphy was coordinating the largest military buildup in human history. Hidden shipyards that had been building in secret for years were now working openly. New ships were being completed every day as Earth's industrial might focused on war production. "Madam President," General Paul Harris reported, "we have received messages from 12 different alien species requesting our help. The Council has enslaved or oppressed all of them. They want to join our fight." Karen nodded grimly. The scope of the Council's crimes was becoming clear. Entire civilizations had been living under tyranny for centuries, waiting for someone strong enough to challenge their oppressors. "Send word to all of them," she ordered. "Earth welcomes any species willing to fight for freedom. We're going to build an alliance that will make the Council's empire crumble." The first major battle outside Earth's solar system took place at Proxima Station. Admiral Tony Rodriguez led a combined fleet of human ships and alien allies against the Council's strongest fortress in the region. The station was massive, built into an asteroid and protected by hundreds of defense platforms. It had never been successfully attacked in its 500-year history. The Council commanders were confident it could hold against any assault. They were wrong. Captain Danny Walsh led the first wave of attackers, using the new tactics Dr. Emma Clark had developed. Instead of attacking the station directly, human ships targeted the Council's communication networks and supply lines. "All ships, execute Plan Thunderbolt," Danny ordered over the fleet communications. Human fighters, too small and fast for the station's heavy weapons to track, swarmed around the outer defenses. They planted electromagnetic pulse charges on the shield generators and weapon platforms. When the charges detonated simultaneously, the station's defenses went dark. Commander Helen Brooks led the main assault force through the gap in the defenses. Her battleships poured concentrated fire into the station's hull, targeting the specific weak points that captured Council technical manuals had revealed. "Shields are down, hull breaches on multiple levels," her tactical officer reported. "The station is defenseless." But the humans didn't want to simply destroy the facility. They needed the intelligence files stored in its computers. Dr. Richard Cole led a boarding party of human Marines and Novari volunteers into the station's control center. The Council defenders fought desperately, but they had never faced enemies like humans in close combat. Human Marines moved with speed and aggression that overwhelmed the aliens, who were used to fighting with overwhelming technological superiority. "Control center secured," Richard reported to Admiral Rodriguez. "We have access to their main computer systems." The intelligence gathered from Proxima Station was devastating to the Council's war effort. The computers contained detailed records of every Council military installation, every enslaved world, and every planned operation. More importantly, they revealed the location of the Council's supreme headquarters. As news of the victory spread, more alien species joined the growing rebellion. The Zephyrians, who had been fighting a guerrilla war against Council occupation for decades, brought their knowledge of stealth technology. The crystalline beings of Tau Ceti offered their expertise in energy weapons. Each new ally brought unique capabilities that made the human-led coalition stronger. But they also brought stories of Council atrocities that hardened humanity's resolve to see justice done. Colonel Nancy Price was assigned to coordinate training between human forces and their alien allies. She was amazed by the diversity of combat, styles and technologies that each species brought to the alliance. "The Novari are excellent pilots," she reported to General Harris. "Their reflexes are actually faster than humans, and the Zephyrian stealth ships are invisible to Council sensors." Meanwhile, the Council's leadership was meeting in emergency session on their homeworld. Councillor Zethkar, architect of the plan to destroy humanity, found himself under intense scrutiny as the Empire's military situation deteriorated. "How could primitives with basic technology defeat our fleets?" demanded High Councillor Mextar, the supreme leader of the Council. "You assured us that humans were no threat." "The intelligence was accurate based on what they showed us," Zethkar protested. "They deliberately deceived us about their military capabilities." "You were deceived by the species you plan to exterminate," Mextar replied coldly. "Perhaps it is time for new leadership in the military." The Council's internal conflicts were weakening their response to the human-led rebellion. Generals argued over strategy, while politicians blamed each other for the failures. The unity that had held their empire together for millennia was cracking under the pressure of defeat. Admiral Tony Rodriguez studied the latest intelligence reports in his command center. The Council still had vast fleets and thousands of worlds under their control, but cracks were appearing in their empire as enslaved species rose up and their own leadership fought among themselves. "The next phase begins tomorrow," he announced to his staff. "We're going to hit 12 Council facilities simultaneously. By the time they figure out how to respond, we'll have liberated half their territory in this sector." Captain Jake Martinez, now commanding a mixed human-alien squadron, prepared for the largest coordinated attack in galactic history. His ships were painted with symbols from dozens of worlds, showing the unity of the growing alliance against Council tyranny. "This is for every species the Council destroyed," he said quietly as his fleet jumped to hyperspace. "And for every world still waiting for freedom." The war was far from over, but momentum was clearly shifting toward the rebels. The Council had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for thousands of years. Now they faced an enemy that fought with something more powerful than technology or numbers. They faced the combined fury of every species they had ever wronged, led by humans who refused to accept that might made right. The galaxy was about to learn that justice, once awakened, was an unstoppable force. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance as the largest fleet in galactic history assembled around his flagship. Ships from 23 different species filled the space around him, all united under human leadership against the Council's tyranny. The final battle was about to begin. "Admiral, all fleets report ready," Commander Helen Brooks announced from her station. "We have over 3,000 ships from allied species, plus the full Earth fleet." Tony looked out at the massive formation of vessels. Human battleships flew alongside Novari fighters, Zephyrian stealth ships, and crystalline energy platforms. Each species brought their unique technologies and fighting styles to the final assault on the Council's homeworld. "Begin the attack," Tony ordered. The Council's home system was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Massive space fortresses orbited the planet, supported by thousands of automated defense platforms and the largest fleet the Council could assemble. High Councillor Mextar had called in ships from across the Empire for this final battle. But the Council faced an enemy unlike any they had fought before. The human-led alliance had learned from every previous battle, adapting their tactics and combining their technologies in ways the rigid Council military doctrine could not counter. Captain Danny Walsh led the first wave of attacks against the outer defenses. His mixed squadron of human destroyers and Novari fighters moved with perfect coordination, using hit-and-run tactics that confused the Council defenders. "Target their command ships first," Danny ordered his pilots. "Cut off their communications, and they can't coordinate their defense." The Zephyrian stealth ships, invisible to Council sensors, struck at the defense platforms from unexpected angles. Their surprise attacks disabled key installations before the Council forces even knew they were under attack. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Martinez commanded the assault on the main Council station. His flagship, the captured Council transport now, renamed the USS Justice, led a boarding party of Marines from 6 different species. "Remember, we need High Counselor Mextar and the other leaders alive," Jake reminded his troops as they prepared to board the enemy station. "The galaxy needs to see them stand trial for their crimes." The boarding action was fierce but brief. Council security forces trained to intimidate unarmed civilians could not stand against the combined fury of species they had oppressed for centuries. Human Marines fought alongside Novari warriors and crystalline soldiers, each group driven by memories of Council atrocities. Dr. Richard Cole led a team of technicians to the station's main computer core. His virus programs, designed specifically to target Council systems, spread through their networks like wildfire. Within minutes, the entire station's defensive systems were under human control. "Jake, we have access to everything," Richard reported over the communication system. "Their command codes, fleet positions, even the locations of hidden Council bases." Back on Earth, President Karen Murphy watched the battle unfold from the Pentagon's command center. The entire planet held its breath as humanity's greatest military operation reached its climax. This was not just a battle for Earth's survival, but a fight for justice across the galaxy. "Madam President," General Paul Harris reported, "our forces have broken through the outer defenses. The Council's main fleet is retreating toward their home planet." Karen nodded, but her expression remained serious. "What about civilian casualties?" "Minimal, ma'am. Our commanders are following strict rules of engagement. We're targeting only military installations and government facilities." The distinction was important to humanity. Unlike the Council, which had committed genocide against entire species, Earth's forces were fighting to liberate, not to destroy. Every action was guided by principles of justice and protection of innocent life. High Counselor Mextar watched his empire crumble from the bridge of his personal battleship. The species he had dismissed as primitive had built the largest military alliance in galactic history. His own subordinates were surrendering rather than fight against impossible odds. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 12 Council fleets," his communications officer reported. "They're asking for terms." Mextar's reptilian features twisted with rage. "No surrender. Fight to the last ship." But his orders were ignored. Council commanders, seeing the hopelessness of their situation, began laying down their arms. Many had never believed in the Council's brutal methods and were relieved to see the tyrannical government finally falling. Dr. Emma Clark coordinated the technical aspects of the final assault from her position aboard the USS Defiance. Her weapons had performed flawlessly throughout the campaign, giving human forces the technological edge they needed against superior numbers. "Admiral Rodriguez, the Council's planetary shields are down," she reported. "We have a clear path to the surface." But Tony had no intention of bombarding the planet from orbit. The people living on the Council homeworld included millions of enslaved beings from conquered species. They deserved liberation, not destruction. "Prepare the landing forces," he ordered. "We take the capital city intact." The ground assault was led by Colonel Nancy Price and a force of human Marines supported by alien allies. They landed in the Council's capital city, where the government buildings stood as monuments to 3,000 years of oppression. The Council's ground forces surrendered quickly when faced with the combined might of their former victims. Novari pilots provided air support while crystalline soldiers secured key buildings. The humans coordinated the operation with precision that impressed their alien allies. In the Council's Supreme Chamber, where countless decisions to commit genocide had been made, Admiral Blake finally confronted Counselor Zethkar. The alien who had betrayed Earth's trust now stood as a prisoner facing justice. "Admiral Blake," Zethkar said with what might have been resignation, "you have won, but governing a galaxy is more difficult than conquering it. You will find that maintaining order requires hard choices." Blake looked at the alien with disgust. "We're not here to rule the galaxy. We're here to free it. Every species will govern itself, and Earth will help protect that freedom." The concept was alien to Zethkar, who had spent his life believing that power could only be maintained through oppression. The idea that a military alliance could exist purely to protect freedom was beyond his understanding. Within hours, the Council's leadership was in custody, and their government had collapsed. But the real work was just beginning. Hundreds of worlds needed to be liberated, and millions of enslaved beings required assistance in rebuilding their societies. President Murphy addressed the galaxy from the former council chambers, now serving as the temporary headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Behind her, flags from dozens of worlds flew side by side, symbolizing the new era of cooperation. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, "today marks the end of the Council's reign of terror. But it also marks the beginning of something better, a galaxy where every species is free to determine its own destiny." She paused, letting her words reach the billions of beings watching across hundreds of worlds. "Earth does not seek to replace the Council's tyranny with our own rule. We offer partnership, protection, and respect for the sovereignty of all intelligent species. The stars belong to everyone, not just the strong." The trials of the Council leadership became a galactic event. Representatives from every species they had oppressed came forward to testify about centuries of atrocities. The evidence was overwhelming, the verdict unanimous. Justice had finally come to the galaxy. Admiral Tony Rodriguez established the new Galactic Defense Force, with ships and personnel from every member species. Unlike the Council's military, which existed to maintain oppression, the GDF's mission was simple: protect the freedom of all species and prevent any future tyrants from rising to power. Captain Jake Martinez was promoted to admiral and given command of the Frontier Protection Fleet. His job was to explore new regions of space and ensure that no isolated worlds fell victim to future oppression. The Council's vast archives were opened to the public, revealing the full scope of their crimes. Species that had been thought extinct were found in hidden slave colonies. Lost technologies and cultural treasures were returned to their rightful owners. Dr. Emma Clark led the effort to distribute advanced technology to all member species, ensuring that no one would again face the disadvantage that had made the Council's oppression possible. Her innovations in defensive systems became the standard for protecting peaceful worlds. The galaxy was free, but vigilance remained necessary. Humanity had learned that evil could hide behind smiling faces and friendly words. The new alliance would not make the mistake of trusting too easily or assuming that all beings shared their values. Earth's fleet patrolled the spaceways, ready to respond to any threat against freedom. The species that had once faced extinction for the crime of showing potential now stood as the galaxy's protectors, ensuring that no world would suffer as they had almost suffered. The Council had betrayed Earth, believing humans were weak and naive. They had learned too late that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their refusal to accept injustice and their determination to fight for what was right. The stars were free, and humanity would keep them that way.